Orbital hybridization is a concept in grade 12 chemistry that students typically find very confusing. I'm going to help you try and pave through that confusion because it really is an elegant and beautiful concept that helps fit so many puzzle pieces together. Let's get started. Take beryllium and chlorine, for example. Now, if your teacher were to ask you to do a Lewis structure of beryllium chloride, so we've got 2 chlorines, each with 7 valence electrons, and then you have beryllium with 2 valence electrons. Now, grade 11s or even grade 10s would probably look at this and say, well, let's share these 2, and let me move this one down here, and let's share these 2. And you end up drawing a diagram that looks like this, with all your electrons around there. And that is a linear shape, which is actually the shape we teach to our grade 12s. But notice that this breaks the octet rule because beryllium looks stable with only 2 pairs of electrons, not 4 pairs of electrons. So what exactly is happening here? To figure that out, we are going to look at the energy level diagram for beryllium, which involves its electron configuration. If you're not sure what energy level diagrams are, you can check out previous videos that I've made here. So beryllium has a 1s shell that is full, and then it's got our 2s shell here. And then there's nothing in the 2p. So if we're just looking at our outer shell, and let's focus on our outer shell. I don't want to even consider any inner shells, right? Because to be stable, we want our outer shell to be complete. So it looks like, there's 2p, looks like these 2 electrons are just already paired up. So which electrons are actually bonding to chlorine then? That's our second problem. So what's going to happen is one of those electrons is going to be promoted. The first step to orbital hybridization is electron promotion. Now we can only promote electrons up to a higher orbital. You cannot promote them up to a higher energy level. So we can go from 2s to 2p, but we cannot go from 2s to 3s. That's not going to happen. So stay within the same energy shell. Okay? Then these 2 orbitals are going to combine, like putting an apple and an orange in a mixture and creating a smoothie. You get one hybrid orbital. So they combine to create an sp orbital. Now we only cared about that s sublevel and that first p sublevel. So that's left with these 2 electrons in an sp hybrid orbital. So what that looks like is you have your s orbital and one of your p orbitals combining to form an sp hybrid orbital. Remember, these aren't physical objects. They're probability waves. Just like any wave, they can overlap and create something new, right? Like different notes on a piano combining to form harmonics. Okay? We get an sp hybrid orbital. Okay? And this shows that you have 2 lone electrons available for pairing. So one of them will pair with our lone electron in chlorine, and the other one will pair with the lone electron in the other atom of chlorine. So orbital hybridization really helps to explain how this is possible. Let's look at some other possible hybrid orbits. Take boron, for example. Boron's electron configuration has a 2s2, so 2 electrons in the 2s orbital, and then 1 electron in one of the p orbitals. What we can do is step 1, promote the electron that is already paired. When we promote it, we have it alone now. so that it's available to pair or bond with the free electron of another atom. And then we have to hybridize them. Why? Because this S energy level is different energies from that P energy level. But you can see in our hybrid orbitals, all of these energy levels are equal, which helps to create this nice symmetric trigonal planar shape. And so our hybrid orbital has equal energy levels with 3 lone pairs of electrons able to bond. And this would also be true for carbon. Now in grade 10 or 11, it was pretty easy to understand how methane could form. Right? Carbon has 4 outer electrons. Right? It needs 8. Each hydrogen needs 1. You can clearly create this shape. But then the question becomes, when you make a tetrahedral shape, why are all those bond angles the same, no matter how you rotate it? Because if you look at the electron configuration for carbon, let's just look at the second energy level. We have a 2s that is full, and then our 2p looks like this. It looks like only 2 electrons are actually available to pair. So what are these two doing? How are they pairing up with these hydrogens to create equal bond energies? Well, orbital hybridization helps to explain that. This electron gets promoted, and then those energy levels hybridize to form some hybrid orbital with 4 lone electrons ready to be paired or shared, creating a nice symmetrical tetrahedral shape. Now there are some more examples and also exceptions to our octet rule. Phosphorus. Phosphorus is interesting because it's an exception to our octet rule. We get this trigonal bipyramidal shape. Right? How does something so nice form? Well, if you look at its orbit, we have 3s and 3p, 2 electrons in our s orbital and 3 here. But it looks like we have a lone pair here and 3 electrons able to bond. And that can happen, right? We can see if we were to draw launched we were to draw phosphorus trichloride, that's possible. So we can have P with chlorine, 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 and a free electron pair, just like its energy level diagram. 3s, and then our 3p. There's our lone electron pair, and here's 3 lone electrons ready to be shared. But because in our third energy shell we also have a d orbital, I'm only going to have room to fit one of those subshells, right? But there should be 5, but that's okay. We're just going to promote one of them up here, and then we're going to hybridize them to create an sp3d orbital, just like I've shown here, right? An sp3d orbital. And this gives us 5 lone electrons ready to be paired, which means it's also possible to have a pCl5. And this is true for our large group 5 elements, but not for nitrogen. Nitrogen, you can form NCl3, but not NCl5. And why not? Because nitrogen does not have a d orbital in its second level. Its outer electrons are in n equals 2, and so it cannot promote. If this is 2s, it cannot promote that anywhere because there's no d orbital. So nitrogen cannot form NCl5. And we can say the same thing about sulfur. Sulfur has these two free pairs. Now you can have SF2, for example. Let's look at that. So if we had SF2, right, looking at our energy level diagram, we have our 3s, our 3p, and our 3d. For sulfur, we have this. So that means we have two pairs of electrons that are just chilling, and then we have two other electrons that are able to bond or be shared with another. So you could have this. Okay. Now oxygen, which is in the same group of sulfur, can do this as well. However, sulfur has another option. It can take these two electrons and promote them, then hybridize to create your sp3d2 orbital with 6 lone electrons waiting to be paired. So then you can have SF6, which looks just like this, all equal bond energies, creating our octahedral shape. I hope this has helped to explain a little bit why orbital hybridization is such an important concept to understand how molecules form and in what ways they can form. If you have any questions, let me know. And also, if you're studying grade 12 physics, for a limited time, you can download my whole course pack for free in the description. Thanks for watching.